like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Directors, March 24th, 2023, 9 a.m. Roll call, please.
Chair Campbell,
Here.
Vice Chair Shirley. Here. Director Laska,
Here.
Director Delgado,
Here.
Director Blackwolder,
Here.
Director Askew. I'm here. Director Peak.
Here.
Director Barber. Here. Director Toledo. Here. We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Please join me with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I want to just take a moment and think about all the people who have been impacted by these storms. We've had quite a few people in our communities have been put out of their houses. They've been without power. They've been suffering, and I think we should all take a moment and feel lucky that we are all safe, and that we, our organization here, will help out as much as possible as far as handling, unfortunately, a lot of the lost materials. So anyway, I just want to be cognizant of that. And then on a lighter note, it's really great to see everybody here. This is the first time in years that we've all been here in the same room. And of course, with the new directors here too, we all get to meet the new directors. So thank you for joining us.
They want the governor to arrest us.
Yeah, at our dinner party, it's French, right? Yeah. All right. Moving on, public communications. If anyone wishing to address the board on matters not appearing on the agenda may do so now. Please limit comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. The public may comment on any other matter listed on the agenda at the time the matter is being considered by the board. For information about submitting public comments in writing in advance of the meeting, please see the meeting information section of this agenda. So is there anyone from the public who would like to address the board on matters not on the agenda? Please approach the podium or raise your hand online.
I don't show any hands.
Okay, no hands. When you're okay, we're closing public communications and moving on to the consent calendar. These matters include routine financial and administrative actions, which are usually approved by a single majority vote. Individual items may be removed from consent for discussion and action. Item number 1, approved minutes of February 17, 2023, regular board meeting. Item 2, approve report of disbursements and board and employee reimbursements for February 2023. 3, receive February 1, 2023 Finance Committee minutes. 4, receive February 1, 2023 Personnel Committee minutes. 5, approve new pay stipend of 5% for team lead. 6, approve headcount increase of 1 full-time employee to landfill operations department. 7, approve headcount increase of 1 full-time employee to engineering and compliance department. Those are all the consent items. Is there anyone on the board who would like to pull an item for further discussion? Great, thank you. Is there anyone in the public who would like to pull any of these items for further discussion, or if they have any comments on the consent agenda in general, please now's your time to make them. Please approach the podium or raise your hand online.
I show that on.
All right, seeing no one, we'll close public comment on the consent agenda. If there is a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Karen.
Second.
Your vice chair, Kim. So we have a first and a second. Any further comments on the seconds? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, so unanimous vote. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to recognition and presentations. A recognition for 30 years of service to Rodney Barber, heavy equipment technician for two.
Thank you, Chair. At this moment, I'd like to introduce Ronnie Barber and his co-worker, Victor. At this time, I'm going to do the introduction. I had an opportunity to engage with Rodney this past week when his 30-year anniversary came. The team that came together, safety manager purchased some cupcakes and delicious ice cream cake. But it was really enlightening to see the team come together in support of Rodney. I learned some things of Rodney that I was not aware of. Rodney has 16 years of perfect attendance. I was discussed in that. He also
And it's perfect attendance at probably being one of the earliest employees that shows up on site. So he basically does the maintenance on the heavy equipment before the fueling and gets the operation started. So it's significant.
yeah, and he shared, and I'm sure he'll share again today, of what his role wants to be when he decides he's going to retire and what work he still has left here at the district. Was very enlightening for me. So at this time, Victor and Rodney, and we also have his manager Efrain in the audience, and a very tight group. And so at this time, I'd like to introduce Rodney and congratulate you on your 30 years of service here at ReGen Monterey.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Victor. I'm the equipment shop supervisor. I've been working with Ronnie for the last 22 years. Ronnie started working here with the district in March 1993. He started working on the site crew. Then he worked at the original Last Chance. And from there, he went to work in the MERV. Then he transferred over to the shop. Get a break.
Thank you.
Okay, exactly. He's responsible for filling and lubrication of all the district mobile equipment. Shows up to work every day with a positive attitude and has had perfect attendance for the last 16 years. He is well liked by all, takes pride in the work, and is very reliable. He's the first one to show up on site no matter the weather conditions. He gets the job done. He has done so for the last 30 years. Congratulations, Rodney, for 30 years of service.
Well, I'd just like to, first of all, say that I'm so honored and blessed, well, by God up above that he's allowing me to come here for so many years to be a part of this wonderful organization. I've been so fortunate to be able to see, the beginning of the MRF when it was its original state, to see it get built up, to see the ever-changing landscape of this landfill, of this great, organization here, and to be part of that, and to just be, witness the ongoing incredible leadership that we've had in the past, and the beautiful people that we have leading us in this, the future that inhabit this building, to this day, and just being a part of that and being felt like you're part of something big, that you matter. What goes on here, that you might be a wheel in a machine, but you're that important wheel. That one part breaks down, we all break down, and but I've never had that ego or that arrogant, that hey, I'm the one that's doing all. It's much more bigger than I am, and I've been so blessed with great management, and the two gentlemen back there are just such a great inspiration to me. I mean, we me and Victor were military veterans, and we work closely together, and also Efrain, and we just kind of adopted like a self-imposed motto of we don't make excuses, we provide results, and that's what we do, and that's what we're always going to do until our last days here, and that's what the district deserves. And after being here so long, you kind of quit. It's not about the money anymore. It's about coming here and being part of something bigger, something more beautiful. And coming here, and the exciting part of my job is being able to mentor the younger employees, teaching them what I learned, and then teaching them where I got to where I am and that they can do it. Because I believe that, there's something great in all of us, something that that connects us, that inspires us. It's why, when COVID came and just threw a left hook at us, we stumbled, but we didn't hit the mat. Then Mother Nature's like, well, here, hold my mimosa. We're gonna try to take you guys out, but we still did, and our leadership, we hung in there and we came in and we did it, and we hung with each other and we inspired each other and, so that's, like I said, there's something great in all of us, that inspires us, that connects us, and we fall down, we get right back up again, and we give back, we never give up, and that's what makes us so wonderful and an inspiration. I want to be inspiration to the community as well, and what we do for the environment. And I love that. I'm just so in love, with what's going on here with this job, and I'm so appreciative of being able to work here this long. And there's my most favorite Bible scripture of all is Hebrews 10:24. It says we should motivate each other to do good works, and so that way, we're not unproductive. And in a biblical sense, that means going out and helping your brother and sister, but also too, it can translate here, motivating each other, our employees or coworkers, to get the best out of them. And I'm not going to be here forever, whether I retire or whether my lottery numbers, come up. But I want to leave that legacy of the younger employees who maybe they want to make a 30-year plan here. So I want to set forth them. Well, you can do it. Here's what you can do, and first of all, your best ability is your availability. You can't be the best. As you've seen in sports, you can't be the best point guard, whatever. If you're always on the bench, you don't show up. And I want to be that face that always smiling, always positive, because you want people drawn to you. You can't be that role model if people aren't drawn to you. And it's like my dad always used to tell me when I was a kid. He's son, when the world, when you laugh, the world laughs with you, and you cry, and I'll give you something to cry about. So, but that's I just want to thank everyone for supported, and I just love being here. And it's just like I said. Like Weeping mentioned, I start at 4 a.m. So I'm the one. I wake up the rooster. He doesn't wake me up, and I get the coffee going. And sometimes the guys don't like my military coffee, but hey, you drink a cup on Monday, you don't fall asleep till Friday. So, that's just I really appreciate all this, and I'm gonna give it 110%, because even on your bad day, if you're off 10%, you're still giving 100%. So I want to just purvey that, and the shop, let people know that the shop, we're always there to for whatever needs. We don't care what it is. We're, like I said, we don't make excuses. We produce results. So that's, like I said, we're always going to do that. And Efrain is just he's just he paid me to say this, but I don't have any so yeah. Now, and he mentioned you guys gonna give me a hot air balloon ride or something like that. But I won't take up no more of your time. But I just wanted to convey that. And thank you so much. And
Thank you, Ryder.
My hair.
Do your hair.
I want to carry them. Yeah, in the middle, yeah.
Get over.
You need the money. All right, good job, Rodney. Get that one.
The chair, you should have videotaped, make sure we save that. That was a good effort. Oh, yeah, his words? Yeah, I think we have it recorded.
Yes.
No, exactly. That's good. Okay.
Yes, I would just like to, Mr. Barber, I would just like to thank you for the motivational talk you gave. You could be one of the March Madness coaches.
Something when I retire, I'll do that.
But I also wanted to say what we have seen during the last many years with COVID and with the storms is our city employees, our county employees, ReGen employees, you really have pulled together in some of the worst circumstances.
Certainly.
And to me, that says that you think of this more than just a job. To show up every day for 16 years, this is way more than a job for you. And the people you work with are probably very motivated as well by your dedication. So I want to personally say thank you
Thank you so much.
for what you've done and what you've created in your team. A lot of the safety things, I think, depend on your job here.
Yeah, I try to, well, I don't try it, I do is, an endeavor every day is to, make the equipment as safe as I can for my fellow coworkers. That way, they're safe and they can go home to their families and then every day, and then if I see them come back to work the next day and, they have all their digits and things, I know that's a victory, and so it's day by day. It's not, looking forward into, a week or month from now, I just take it day by day, because if you, you start getting too carried away, you lose sight of the bigger picture, just, keep going and make them safe and.
Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate your work.
And I'd be a coach, but as long as we cover the point spread, I wouldn't care if we won. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow. It's nearly a third of a century. That's,
Quite a feat.
yeah, that's quite a few. That's a huge percentage of the existence of the district. It's like, and I think we're very lucky to have those kind of employees. All right, thank you, Felipe, for number 8 and for the recognition. And we're moving on to discussion and action. We have one item under that. Authorize the general manager to execute a public works construction contract for the module 7, phase 3 excavation liner project with a qualified low bidder, Granite Rock Construction of Watsonville, California, and the amount of $7,991,500, which includes a 5% contingency.
At this time, Chair and Board, we're gonna have a short presentation. We have David Ramirez, our senior engineer. Will be doing our presentation.
Right, thank you. Well,
Thank you, Director Campbell, and good morning, members of the board. I repeat the sentiment that was expressed earlier. It's so nice to see all your faces here. It has been literally years since this has happened, so it's very, very nice to have you all here in person. And today I get the pleasure of sharing a presentation with you regarding a Module 7 liner bid that we've got. If I can make this work for me, I will get on that. Okay. I think we're on, just do that. And that, I think we're all set to go. Module 7 is liner project, and this is phase 3 of that work. So we've done quite a bit of work in advance of this landfill module project to excavate down to the desired landfill depth. So we've actually excavated into some of the natural bluff that is here on site to gather some extra airspace for our landfilling operations. Go there. This is a picture of the aerial view of the site. You are here. That magenta line that you see kind of swirling its way around the site, not the red one, the little interior magenta one, that's the proposed landfill boundary, or the permitted landfill boundary that we have available to us in the future to fill. Currently, the developed landfill piece is this green area. That's modules 1 through 6. Two of the landfill modules are unlined, and the remaining landfill modules are lined with a system that's similar to what you're going to see today. Module 7 is the next horizontal expansion of the landfill. And if we look at the numbers, module 7 is 17 acres in area. It has an initial capacity of 1,950,000 tons to the current top deck elevation. What that means, if we build up to where the landfill is now, that's approximately the capacity that it has. So I say initial capacity, because the landfill is actually permitted to go higher than what it is now. Expected time until the next horizontal expansion that we're gonna need, but once we get up to that existing top deck elevation is about 3 to 4 years before we will want to go horizontal again. Potential revenue in that time period is about $98 million. And I apologize for the green thing there. But maybe we can read this. We're proposing the use of an engineered alternative design for this project, as opposed to the prescriptive liner that's in the regulations. The Title 27 regulations have a specific liner design that they ask for, but we have the opportunity to propose an engineered alternative design, which I'll go over. This is the prescriptive liner that is in the regulations by Title 27. And you can see this is a cross section. So if we were to cut vertically through the liner and then look at it from the side, we have a compacted clay liner, and clay is a natural soil material that when you compact it well enough, you can actually make it impervious to water penetration. And then on top of that, we have a double-sided texture HDPE membrane that's plastic, high density polyethylene geomembrane that goes on top of that. Then the next layer of the cake is a drainage layer, and this drainage layer allows for the leachate to be collected and then managed by the site. And then to protect that leachate collection system and the liner, there's an operations layer, which is essentially just soil that we put on top just as a cushion to make sure that nothing penetrates down into that liner system. The prescriptive liner is usually the least expensive option for a site if you have the clay on site. So that if you have that naturally occurring on your site, which we historically have had on our site, then you are able to use that clay and it cuts down a lot on expenses. However, ReGen does not have a sufficient amount of clay on the site right now to be able to build this liner system. So we were interested in exploring this engineered alternative design for this project. And the engineered alternative design is allowable by the water board or by the regulators when it would be too expensive to build the prescriptive liner, or it would be impossible to build it the way it's being asked to be built. And the engineered alternative design must meet or exceed the performance standards that are in the prescriptive liner system. Here is a side-by-side comparison of one of the engineered alternative designs that we proposed and the prescriptive liner. On the right is the prescriptive liner, which we saw earlier, and on the left is the engineered alternative design, EAD-A, that we proposed. This still had a clay liner system in it. And on top of that clay liner, in order to accommodate for that foot of clay that we removed, we had a double-sided HDPE membrane, then a geocomposite liner, and then a 40 mil HDPE liner on top of that, just to add more protection. However, both of these options did not satisfy what the site needed, because we do not have sufficient clay on site. So neither one of these options are available to us. We have a second engineered alternative design that we proposed to the regulators, which was a system that was done all with geomembrane and geocomposite liner systems. So on the left, you see EAD-B, the second engineered alternative design we explored, which includes more HDPE geomembranes, a GCL like you saw before, and an HDPE geomembrane. Those by themselves are equivalent to what is on the right-hand side, the prescriptive liner system. But in addition to that, the belt and suspenders approach is we have a 60 mil HDPE geomembrane underneath the whole thing, just to ensure that we have an extra layer of protection. So this system did not require a clay source, and it's the system that we're proposing to use for this design. When we submitted for bids, we had a public bidding process, which we got 3 bids for. Granite Rock Construction, Suka Construction, and Wood Brothers. And these project elements were developed before we actually knew how much clay we were going to be excavating during those earlier phases. And so we got 2 bids from the contractors. We asked them to give us 2 prices, one for EADA and one for EADB. However, EADA was out of the picture because it didn't provide, we didn't have the clay source on site to be able to build it. So we have EADB as our option that we're going to be going forth with. And we're recommending. And that is the low bidder of Granite Rock Construction for $7.6 million. Here's a quick budget summary, and I do have to say this is hot off the press. I did make a modification to the your printouts here. So instead of total project, this is remaining fiscal year project budget. And instead of 6.7, it's 5.7. So that's a change to what you have in your packet on the diets. I apologize for that change, but we have the remaining fiscal year budget was prepared anticipating that, or we were going to have sufficient clay on site to build the prescriptive liner or even EADA. However, that didn't come to fruition with the excavations that we did. So the increase in cost takes the project budget to $9.9 million. And the difference between what the bids we got and this 9.9 million is in mechanical and plumbing design, that infrastructure that needs to go in, and construction oversight also for the project. So this is what we're talking about today, is just the liner piece, but there are more pieces to this overall total project budget. For comparison, here's some historic liner costs that I've adjusted for inflation. Back in 2013, Module 5 on a cost per acre basis was around $230,000 per acre. Module 6, which we just completed in 2021, has $302,000 per acre. And Module 7 is $448,000, which is about 1.5 times the cost of the Module 6. However, keep in mind, if we were to try to build it like Module 6, we'd be upward of 3 to 4 more million than what we're proposing here today, because that clay would need to be imported to the site. So we need to find the source, pay for the source of clay, and then truck that material here, build test pads, et cetera. So it really, this is the best option for the district to pursue. A quick company profile of Granite Rock Construction, the company that we're proposing to award the bid to. They were founded in the year 1900, and their contractor's license is number 22. Yeah, that's a very low number. I wonder who the next highest, the next lowest number is, but I bet they're not near 22. So that tells you how long Granite Rock has been around and how trusted they are in the community. They specialize in heavy civil construction. They were contracted by the district in 2019 to construct a part of the MRF project. They're a longtime aggregate supplier and ReGen customer. And they're definitely a reputable contractor with sufficient means to take on the job and accomplish the scope of work that we're asking them to do. So I know I threw in a lot of numbers at you, but I'm happy to take questions that you all may have.
Yeah, Dave. If I recall, the earlier modules were excavated down to the naturally occurring in situ clay layer, but that's not here in this area.
It's present throughout the whole site. It's just a matter of how that clay layer appears underneath the excavation. So the clay layer it's not uniformly distributed as like one elevation. So it can go up and down and modulate as the natural topography of that time changes. So when we got to the clay, we didn't get deep enough into the clay to get it. We were like right on the surface with this proposed elevation that we excavated to. So it's there, it's just a little lower than what we,
Would it be cheaper just to excavate just a few more feet to get down to it?
you would think it would be, but it does take a significant time to dewater the clay, move it all out, let it dewater to get to the correct moisture content. And then you have to backfill with something else. So you're handling material very, very frequently. And we also don't think that that's the best approach.
Okay. Another question I had was, once you've raised this module 7 to its the same level as the adjacent layers.
Yeah.
Will you be able to continue filling on top of the adjacent layers?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we build out horizontally,
Yeah.
that allows us to kind of build up
Vertically.
vertically and a little bit horizontal to take advantage of those interior modules that we've built previously, like module 6 is right next door. If I can go back. So module 7 is right next to the developed landfill. So as we fill module 7, we'll start going over that green area to take advantage of previous modules that we built.
How much additional airspace do you have above the green module there?
Above the green modules, we have approximately 80 feet above what we the level we have. I don't have the number in my head right now, but it's about 80 feet higher is what we're looking at.
However, you can't fill it at this time because it's not a broad enough base to fill it that high.
It's a pyramid, yeah. So
With 7, you could build part of it.
yeah, we'd have that. We'd have more of an option to do that, right?
Wendy?
So next to the budget piece. So the total project budget is going from 5.7 million to 9.9 million. So that's a pretty significant increase to what we were planning on.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit more about what the options are for funding that? It's a $4 million overage,
Right.
right?
I think Guy wants to say
Okay.
something.
I'd love to hear more about that and what our
Yeah.
plans are for
So this-
managing that.
This is information's a bit of apples and oranges. So there's $5.7 million remaining in the fiscal year budget. However, to finish the project, the 9.9 is total. Yeah, so the 9.9 consists of 2 phases that have been completed. This particular contract, that's the subject of today's agenda, and then some construction quality assurance monitoring and some electrical mechanical, which are separate from this contract. So altogether, that's 9.9 million. And the project was variably estimated between 8.5 million total and 9.1 historically, before the alternate liners were known to be needed. So the change in cost is not as great as this slide would identify. So 5.7 million is remaining in current year budget. 9.9 is an overall project cost.
Okay, the project cost had originally been estimated at 8.5 to 9.1 million.
Yes.
So going up to 9.9 million is really sort of just a 0.8 million increase in the overall estimated total budget for the project.
Yes.
Okay, and we would have that available to us in future year budgets that we would plan for.
Yeah, and that's the plan. We have 5.7 remaining in current year budget, so the funding need for the total project from a timing standpoint can be provided in the next year fiscal budget. So the two combined can finish the project.
Okay, that's helpful clarification. Thank you. Because I looked at the plan, I was like,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Questions? Aaron?
Yes, so I don't know where you would even buy clay, but I'm assuming that would also involve trucking
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
a tremendous amount of clay. So it might be important to have something that says this will offset also carbon emissions from all the truckloads that would come in. So it helps explain to people why something may be more expensive, but in, you know, in other terms, it.
Sure, what are the
costs
environmental
all the
costs?
Traffic on the roads, all of the emissions to get the materials here, that would be a whole different set of expenses that we don't often factor into things, but they're important.
Sure.
Dr. Barber?
So the unexpected clay source issue that came up this time that actually increased the budget, how would that impact other phases after phase 7? That, I'm just curious, how are you planning for that?
Yeah, so we have the future landfill liner systems, which is more to it than just the clay. And as we expand out to the east, there's the clay issue, and then there's having to go down lower than some groundwater that's present there. So we probably would have to do something similar to this anyway as we move to the east, just because we're starting to have other impacts to groundwater. Well, not impacts to groundwater, take that back. Other kind of impacts we need to engineer for. So this would likely be the same system we would propose for those reasons, even though we may have specific, we may be excavating clay out of those areas. We may choose to build this type of module for other reasons. That makes sense.
There's a regulatory requirement for separation from groundwater. And as this landfill moves to the east, there will likely be a proposal to design the perimeter location below actual groundwaters. And so to be able to accomplish that would need to have an alternate design like is being proposed here, which artificially creates the separation as opposed to what's been done so far as in history is to always stay above the groundwater. Based on the module 5 design, it basically bakes in that one will have to go below groundwater to accomplish a perimeter sump, which is where the liquids are removed from. And it's ideal to have those sumps along the edge of the landfill where they are somewhat accessible for operations and maintenance, as opposed to the module 5 sump, which right now is inside the landfill. And the only way to maintain that sump, if we were not to go to the perimeter, would be to make a vertical riser to access the sump, and then that would end up being a couple hundred feet by the time the landfill was completed, and is extremely problematic in being successful.
Okay, so there could be a possible anticipation of an increase as far as the funding that would be needed for other phases.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, the position the staff will take is to, from a financial modeling standpoint, is to utilize the alternate liners as the predictive approach. And to use that in the financial model. It's possible that a clay source will develop over time and could actually be delivered at little or no charge to the district if the other party has a need to get rid of that clay. But it's a complicated endeavor to deal with clay, uniformity of clay for the purpose of a liner system. So it's not a likelihood that the district will be using the prescriptive liner much at all in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Bruce?
Thank you, Chair. I'm a little confused because the way that's written, it sounds like we have to find another 4.2 million that wasn't budgeted originally during the rest of this fiscal year. Is that correct?
That's not correct. So the 5.7 million is what's remaining in this fiscal year budget. So you're right, it is confusing. There's an additional ask in next year's fiscal year budget of the 4.2 million. So that's going to be included in next year's budget. That the difference that you're seeing there will be included in next year's budget.
We're just approving it now. It's coming before the board now. We're approving.
As a project, the project's going to overlap to a few fiscal years.
So this year's budget doesn't need to increase 4.2 million.
No, it won't. The
Next
project,
year's budget will.
correct. So the project will likely be under that 5.7 in this fiscal year. And then as the project gets, kind of straddles the fiscal year. So we're likely going to be under that 5.7 for this fiscal year budget. And then those costs will need to push over into the next year.
Okay, so absolutely, right now, it's estimated that total project cost is 9.9.
Correct.
I assume, but I want to ask, are we filling module 6 right now?
Correct. Well, we're operations kind of chooses depending on site conditions where they want to be filling. We have placed fill in module 6, but they're filling in their most opportune locations at any given time.
And then how many other modules are partially right now also being used?
I put module 4, module 5, module 3. It's kind of, it depends. So weather really has staff bouncing around to the best spot where they build wet weather tipping pads, which are on one module, but then in dry season, they go to another module. So that flexibility is really something that's key to operations.
Yeah, that sounds great. So if I were to ask, how long will 7 last? You really don't know because it depends on how much you use these others and how fast you use up 7.
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, 3 to 4 years before we think we're going to need a horizontal expansion of the landfill and for module 8. And so that's just to take it up to the current top deck elevation.
And that's not the end of the
total.
life of this first part of.
Correct.
7.
I can switch over to something really
It's always
quick. At
more
the very end.
complicated than it seemed at first. That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim.
Bill.
Thank you for the presentation. Could you just walk us briefly through the regulatory process? Well, what is the state regulatory agencies that you're getting approval from? And I assume you got pre-approved on all of this ahead of time.
Yeah, this project started years ago when we started making these phases. And when we started having a hunch that we weren't going to get sufficient amount of clay for building the prescriptive liner, we contacted the California Water Resources Control Board, the Central Coast Water Quality Control Board, and we submitted some details showing them these are the 2 engineered alternative designs that we would like you to give us the nod on, and it was EADA and EADB. The one if we thought, well, maybe we'll have some clay excavated out of these this spot, but we wanted to be sure that we had something that they were going to be okay with. So we submitted both of those engineered alternative designs, and they did give us the nod on, yes, this would be something that we could approve. The project then goes through a design report process. When that design report gets submitted to the Water Quality Control Board, they review it, and that's got all the details, all the plans, all the specs that are relevant to this project. And that gets approved. And then there's a construction quality management report or plan that gets developed, saying that somebody is going to be here, a third party is going to be here verifying that everything is built according to design specs, that everything is done on the up and up. They provide photos, reports, data, testing of the seams, and submit that to the Water Quality Control Board. The regulator looks at that information, verifies that it all makes sense and is within the design parameters of the site, And then they give us an approval to start beginning to place fill in that area. Does that hit your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes, I have
Or
a-
did you have a follow-up
Sorry.
on that specific line of question?
Well, not exactly.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the question, so I am new to this, so I don't know. When and how accepting, landfill, trash and so on from other areas. I think we're bringing in some from San Jose, is that correct? Do the tipping fees balance out the need for expanding the modules all the time? In other words, we're having to expand modules, I assume, because we're bringing in more materials. And does what we bring in income from that
Yes. Yes.
more than? Cover
The
this?
estimated value at the current rate is, out of this one module would be about 100 million for the $10 million expense.
Okay, so this is a good business.
Yes, it is.
decision,
Absolutely.
As well as a necessary environmental decision to protect the water. So,
Correct.
okay, because I think that's really important for our ratepayers eventually, and whatever media presentations go out about these in our newsletters, that advantage from expanding our modules and doing it the right way is paying off. So it's not like our JP, our district is paying for San Jose's filling up our landfill. So I think those are good, important things to explain to the public.
If anything, San Jose is making the cost for the member agencies to be a lot lower as we expand these fields. If we had to incur the cost as member agencies only, that cost would inflate for the member agencies.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to make sure I've got the budget piece clear. And so, so what I hear being said is that the original project cost was estimated at 8.5 to $9.1 million. The new total project cost is being estimated as an increase to $9.9 million. That we have 5.7 budgeted in our current fiscal year for this work. And that the 0.8 total budget increase will then be felt in next year's budget, which we'll budget for when we do our budget. That, okay, so just maybe this is just a how we word things. In the staff report, it says that there's an increase. There will be a need for at least a $4 million increase to the 2023-2024 budget for the module 7. Is that an increase of $4 million, or we will need to budget for what we anticipate the project cost to be, which is now $4 million?
It's the latter, those funds, there would have been a smaller funding ask had it been relative to the 8.5 or 9.1 total project cost.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so this could have been worded to say, or just for my understanding, so it's not an increase of $4 million to next year's budgets. It's we had planned to put 3.2 million into next year's budget,
Yeah.
but now it'll be an increase of 0.8 million, which leads to a total of 4 million. Okay, I just want to make sure because I was hearing two different things that I needed to make.
That is accurate.
Okay.
The 4.2 is relative to the 5.7 that's
Okay.
remaining.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I was not clear enough in my question earlier, but thank you.
No, I
for
was-
And for purpose of clarification, that, the agenda item is awarding the
the
contract,
contract,
but.
but we've got to have the money for it.
Right,
so.
staff has a duty to advise about status of funding.
Yeah, okay, thank you for the clarification. I'm good. I can move approval.
Okay, great, Bruce. Did you have
I'll second if that's the motion.
Okay,
Is that a motion, Wendy? I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's a motion to approve.
So-
approval.
okay,
So
so we
for
have a,
discussion,
yeah, we have a motion and a second on the table.
yeah, so I want to follow up on what Karen was saying. Because this white paper that we've been talking about, that's one of the main points we wanted to say. So when we have to refresh ourselves on this issue, which I often have to do, we can pull up that white paper. The last draft I saw, I wasn't sure if that white paper really nailed a few points that we were hoping it would nail, but beyond that, I'm hearing 98 million income for a $10 million expense over the life of this module. But what I'm not sure about is how much of that 98 million is gonna come from San Jose, et cetera, sources? How much of the 98 million is gonna come from our district customers? And how much, I guess, profit we're gonna make compared to the number of years of less landfill life? And that's the whole gist of the white paper, and that's why the white paper is so important. If you stay on this board, you forget things, and if you do on this board, you don't know. And so instead of going over this all the time verbally, that's the importance of the white paper. If the white paper doesn't satisfy the need for this critical information, then we'll continue to be word of mouth, relearning, you know, these important things.
So it's like, it sounds like those kind of fine, percentages over time, something that maybe Garvin.
We'll beat up the 98 million as to how much of that it will come from member agencies and how much will come from the San Jose or the regional members that are outside of the member agencies.
Yeah, and how many years do we lose, like 0.5 or 5.5 of our lifespan, you know, for the money that we're bringing in?
Okay. I have a couple of questions still, and a comment. The liners, the liner system, and then you have the geosynthetic HDPE liners, and this, the last one has one on the bottom. Is that structural, or is that for what, for liquids, or both?
It's a little bit of both. So there are some needs as far as how the structurally from earthquake standpoint, or differential sediment of waste, or that these liners, if you see they have we're calling out textured side down. Some of them have, those are in there for some structural reasons to give it more stability. But mainly the main purpose of it is water, a water barrier, a liquids barrier.
So when Guy referred to plumbing and such, the last option B had a liner right on top of the subgrade. So we're going to be anticipating trying to collect some water or some liquid.
Hopefully not. So the upper sandwich, I'll call it, of liner systems, you see that LCRS drainage layer. That's the workhorse of the landfill. So the liquids percolate down and through the landfill. They go to this leachate collection and recovery system. There are piping, plumbing that is put in underneath the landfill. Then pumps that go under there that pump that liquid out from beneath the landfill. That's really your main water contact location from the liner. They sometimes put in that compacted soil layer. There's there can be a leak detection system that's put in there to verify that no waters are going beyond that boundary. But that's really a belt and suspenders approach, just to get it through, and the regulators to say, hey, we're going above and beyond what's required of us to put in.
Okay, great, thank you. And then please keep that picture up. So assuming that the subgrade is going to be at the, regardless of which,
Yeah.
system, subgrade is going to be at the same level. Let's just assume that, and the liner system is a foot thinner for what we're proposing. Is that at all worth? I mean, does that mitigate the cost at all if we end up with 17 acres of 1 foot more of landfill space, or is that?
It's accounted for in the numbers, so it's already accounted for. So what we had the project contractors do before is take us right up to the interface between the LCRS and the first liner systems. So the grade right now is there because we weren't sure if we were going a foot deep or 2 feet deep to build the system. So
so the elevation of the operations layer is going to be the same.
The elevation of correct.
It's not going to be a foot lower in the.
Correct. So when the contractor bid the job, they accounted for the excavation.
Okay. And the side, not maybe we gain an extra foot, okay. Last thing, the comment I just said was on the contractor's license number 22. We have we're over 1 million now on the
Yeah.
contractor's license. So that's. All right, is there any more comments from the board? I'll open it up to public comment. Is there any public comment on the motion for the board to approve this contract? Please approach the podium or raise your hand if you're online.
Okay.
Okay, closing public comment on that. Did you have anything more to add, David?
No, I didn't. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Great, great presentation, David.
Speaker.
All right. Moving on to staff reports, review finance and operating and recycling reports.
Thank you, Chair. At this time, we have Barbara Gregson, finance manager, who will be running our.
Good morning, everybody. And here we are, 2/3 of the way through the fiscal year. The month of February was a reasonably good month. Revenue wise, we were about 58K under budget. And that continues to be the shortfall we see in the MRF revenue as commodity prices continue to stay lower than what they have historically been. Our operating expenses were 130K over plan for the month. And it resulted in our net income was about 98K under budget for the month at 518. The first month in a long time where we have been below budget in terms of our net income. Year to date, our total revenue continues to be strong. Mainly tip fees are very strong. We're $1 million over budget there. And our power revenue continues to be strong. And however, the MRF is still dragging behind in terms of actual versus budget. I included something in this month's report to show you a little more information about how the MRF is performing against budget and against last year. So you can see our revenue numbers are down quite a bit from the budget and from last year. Year to date, our operating expenses are about 700K over. And to provide a little more information on that, some of the areas where we are over budget on our operating expenses, number one is employment costs and salaries specifically. And the primary reason for that is our overtime costs through February are about $630,000. Now we do budget for overtime since there are departments that are going to be working overtime. That's just the way they operate. However, our budget for the whole, actually our actuals through February were at 697,000. Our budget for the whole year for overtime is 630. So we're already over budget through February for the whole year's budget. So that's the biggest reason that the employment expenses have exceeded plan. There's another factor in there as well, is that every year we have to do a workers' comp payroll reconciliation based on what our actual payroll was versus what we told them it was going to be. And that's how they calculate our premium. And then we have to go back and sort of even things up, and we either pay more premium or we get money back. So we actually had to pay more premium. So that was about $70,000 of additional workers' comp costs, which are impacting this year. Other expense items, and I've mentioned this in previous months, we had some repair costs to the LFG system, which was about $235,000, which we did not have in the budget. The fuel costs are higher. We budget our fuel costs kind of based on historical consumption, historical pricing, and it turns out, the prices actually went up even more from last year. So we're seeing a negative impact there. And another area is our recycling costs. And that's a combination of money that we pay to Keith Day for his processing of the green waste, and also our hauling costs of material out of the MRF, all the products that go out of there. So, and the biggest variance is Keith Day compared to last year. Last year, for the full year, we spent about $1.4 million with him. And through February this year, we've already spent $1.7 million. And so, you know, again, we budget kind of based on what we've done recently, historically. So, you know, we may have under budgeted on that, but the reality is, you know, we're doing more volume with him. Plus, we did have a price adjustment with him during the year too, given that he's now processing mixed green waste and food waste. So that's increased his cost. So that's kind of flowed down to us. So that's kind of a little bit more information on what's been happening with our expenses. Still, we are, you know, well ahead of our budget in terms of the bottom line. We're at 6.8 million and about 230,000 over budget year to date. On the operating side of things, we're continuing to bring in more volume than we brought in last year at the same time. We're about 82,000 tons ahead of what's come in so far this year compared to last year. And we've landfilled about 45,000 tons more this year than we did last year. In terms of the MRF activity, our diversion percentages continue to be in the low 60s this year, which is basically the same as it was last year. So there really hasn't been much change in that area. So that's kind of a quick summary of where we are year to date. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer them.
Bruce? Thank you, Garth. I'm just enthralled with your presentation. It's really, you make it really simple to understand. I really appreciate that. My question is regarding the Pajaro refuse coming to us. And my questions are, what are the expected impacts on our tonnage, our tipping fees, the traffic through here? Are we gonna give it discounts, those kinds of things?
I have that in, excuse me, thank you, Mayor. I have that in my general manager comments, but I'll go ahead and.
I can wait.
Yeah, we have actually seen an uptick in the volume come in from the flood damages and things like that. In fact, just this week, we had a customer who's already said, you know, he's going to be bringing in approximately $50,000 worth of material. And then we've also just been in contact this week with somebody from the Pajaro area, and that they want to start bringing material here as well. We haven't seen a huge volume increase related to that, but it is going to, you know, impact our revenue number. It's, you know, we don't want to, you know, benefit from somebody else's misfortune, but the reality is, you know, we are going to, you know, see some benefits.
Get a dance in.
But it will, you know, impact us, and Felipe will probably have a little more information to add to that.
Thank you.
Bill? Thank you, Garth, for the report. I have a question about overtime, and I know, you know, you staff for the floor, and then the overtime it takes up fluctuates. At what point is it more cost effective to just staff up? Is there any sort of rule of thumb on that?
Well,
Cut
yeah,
down on the overtime?
we really don't have one. Historically, you know, the overtime has been in the 10 to 15% area, and that has been considered acceptable. That's considered almost normal in the way the district operates. So, you know, we've seen a greater amount of that this year. Some of it's probably weather related, the fact that, you know, we have more people working overtime that we would have not had in the past. But
Did Jay have something to add? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you'll see that, you saw that in today's packet, where we requested an additional heavy equipment operator. Also, we started the season out with 2 wet weather pads. We're now on our 3rd. So we had to build that, you know, on overtime, so that huge wet weather pad number 3 was built 100% overtime. So the wet weather is driving a lot of it in the last couple of months.
What's a pad?
It's a more stable tipping area, so the trucks don't sink So it's got more rubble in it, more gravel. It's way better, a lot more firmer than your typical dump area.
Thank you.
That was a good question. So I'm new, so help me out. Historically, and I'm looking at I'm just wondering if February is normally with the revenue, total revenue, with the disposal revenue, whether that's normally a lower month. I notice July and February were basically lower months in disposal. And then I noticed a continuing kind of decline from December to February for the power revenue. Is that is that a historical piece of doing the times of the year, or is it a weather piece, or?
Well, it's a combination of the weather, certainly that impacts things, but there is some seasonality to the business here where the winter months do tend to dip a little bit in terms of the tip fee revenue. And then it picks up again once we get into the spring, summer months.
Okay.
On the revenue side or the power side of things, our power equipment requires certain maintenance to be done, on the equipment, so that can cause, fluctuations in the power revenue. And so it just depends, or if something breaks and we have a machine go down, and we actually did have a machine go down for a while earlier this year. So that's not really as predictable. And theoretically, the power revenue should be pretty consistent through the year, except when we know we're going to have scheduled, maintenance. And the maintenance things can take a machine out of service for, a couple of weeks. So it does have an impact on that line.
We have one down this month.
Yeah, there's one down. There's one down right now.
Yeah, they re-steep pistons and re-get it ready, otherwise it'll cause more internal damage to the engine if we don't do those maintenance and services to the engine.
And a second engine that's derated to about half its normal production due to
waiting on parts.
part limitation, so it can't run it full.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
About them.
All right, I have a quick question about the keep day operations and the handling the greenways. Why aren't we, do we need to revisit a rate per ton for the greenway, so we're not so it's not costing us so much to have Keith Day handle this, or
Well, we've worked with Keith Day for a long time, and and he does a very good job at that, and it is very somewhat candy and convenient having him here on site doing that work. And so I think we have looked at it in the past and determined that it is more economical to contract with him, to process all of the green waste, and now, the combined food waste, green waste. And, he did increase his fees and, give a brief preview of what's coming down the road for our fiscal 24 budget. We're going to be considering a tip fee increase pretty much across the board, which will impact the incoming green waste material. So, we should be able to offset, a lot of, his higher costs.
even though we're kind of over budget on that, we're not necessarily losing money on that at this stage. Okay.
No.
Thank you.
A couple meetings ago, we had the biochar presentation. Silences it?
Side tech, yeah.
Cetos?
Cetos.
When do we anticipate that happening, and?
I have that in my general manager
Okay,
comments.
so I'm hoping that will help out with some of the green waste processing. So I look forward to hearing that.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Thank you, Garth. That was
Okay.
very good presentation. Moving on to 11, report on the TAC and SB 1383.
We have Director of Communications, Willie Schultz, and she will go through.
Thank you, Felipe. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Nice to see you all. My name is Zoe, and I'm the Director of Communications. My team and I, just for a little bit of background for our newer board members, help to coordinate activities of our Technical Advisory Committee here at ReGen Monterey. That technical advisory committee consists of generally one staff member from each of your jurisdictions, members from all three haulers, and also ReGen staff. So we try to coordinate all of activities and compliance for member jurisdictions as it relates to legislation coming your way. So for the last 3 years, we've been focused on SB 1383, which is essentially the law that is now requiring, but also allowing us to put food scraps in our green cart and reduce climate emissions. So I'll give an update on our meeting that was held on February 10th. The first item that we took on was our director of engineering, Guy Pitcherborg, gave the same biochar presentation that you all heard at your January meeting to our TAC. So your staff is up to speed on those activities that are coming to our district. We also had Blue Strike Environmental give a presentation on contamination monitoring results for SB 1383. So as a part of the law, we are required to lid flip, which is look in each of the carts to determine how much contamination is appearing in all three streams. So organics, recycling, and trash, believe it or not. And they gave a brief presentation about some of the results of the 2022 contamination monitoring. It wasn't exactly what we were looking for. So we're going to ask them to come back and give results of the 2023 monitoring, which is happening actually right now. So we'll get a couple of years worth of data to try to compare and bring before your board. The next thing that we talked about was contamination monitoring customer notifications. So as a part of that monitoring, we are required, your jurisdictions are required to leave behind notices if any contamination is found for the customers. And those notices can take many different forms. They can happen at the time of the monitoring, like an instant notification, which is really great for behavior change, or they can even be sent in the mail or email. So our TAC discussed different approaches and what would be most cost effective for the member jurisdictions to perform, as well as what would be most effective to initiate behavior change for the folks who are contaminating any one of those three streams. So we have contracted with Blue Strike Environmental again to provide that monitoring, and decided that they will use the cart tags actually that the haulers use. If you've ever gotten a notice from the haulers that says, oops, you're not supposed to do this, or so we're going to use those same cart tags and also have a little leave behind flyer that explains what can go in each cart, and that this is a monitoring that's happening as a part of 1383, and just explain a little bit about the law. So those are happening right now as we speak, those monitoring activities. Item number 4 was we reviewed a draft budget for shared cost MOU. So as a part of 1383, one of the services that ReGen offers to the member jurisdictions is coordination of all of these activities and sharing of costs of items related to SB 1383 specifically. So that way each one of your member jurisdictions aren't required to go out and hire additional staff and try to figure out how they're going to fund these activities. ReGen kind of takes on some of those roles, works in coordination with staff to decide what types of activities, how they should be performed, and then provides that in a shared cost MOU. So you're saving quite a bit of money with these activities being pooled together. And also we're having consistent programming being delivered throughout the whole region, which is great for uniformity and messaging. So that will come, the shared cost MOU will come before the Finance Committee in April and before your full board for approval. You'll get a chance to see those numbers and a breakdown of how those should be incorporated into your city's budgets as well. The next item we discussed was green waste franchise rate planning for July 1st, 2023. There are prescriptive increases that happen as a part of contracting with the haulers. And this year, those rate increases are expecting to be between 3% and 7% for your member jurisdictions. So those will be coming to the councils before July 1st. That also includes the 5% proposed increase that this board is increasing for, that this board will decide to increase or not for this coming fiscal year. So just giving you a little preview of what those numbers mean, and we'll have some more details about how that will affect the monthly rate for each member jurisdictions for customers.
Thank you, Ms. Zoe. Just to add, that there will create an Excel spreadsheet that represents every city and the disposal component tied into your hauler increase. So you'll know of the hauler increase, what represents the increase that we're asking for a year, which composes of the disposal component. Usually roughly that's about 1.2% to 1.5% of the overall increase that the hauler is asking for. So you have a dictation for how many cents is that on the bill that would be in the impact coming resulting from the approval of the request that we have in our budget of a 5% increase. So it'll just help this delineate the two. Thank you, Mr. Wong.
Thanks, Felipe. The TAC also heard the same presentation that your board received from our education and outreach specialist, Odalis Barajas, last month. I'm really happy with the work that she's doing in our schools in conjunction with waste management. And we just also mentioned to TAC members that there is a new requirement for the member jurisdictions to post copies of their franchise agreements online on your city websites. So just letting all the jurisdictions know that that is a requirement now, and the legislation is AB 248 that requires that. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that this board may have. Thank you.
Bill?
Thank you for the report. On these contamination notices, so I'm just doing a little math in my head. I think Pacific Grove has about 5,000 single family residences, so I'm excluding the multifamily residences, right? And I think the last October, lid flipping, the contamination monitoring, I think it was about 30. Do you recall offhand?
How many? How many customers? Sorry.
Yeah, about 30 addresses.
I don't recall. I'm sorry.
Yeah, something like that. And so I'm like 5,000 customers, 30 were examined at a time. And I think the SB 1383 requires, is it quarterly?
Annual.
Annual.
As it relates to the jurisdiction's contamination monitoring. We have quarterly as it relates to ReGen's monitoring activities that happen here. It's a little confusing.
So I guess my observation is that the contamination monitoring, most customers will never, well, within 10 years, probably won't even see one of these notices.
Hopefully not. Yeah, hopefully not. I mean, it is a very small percentage of customers, you're correct, that are being monitored. And we're, the TAC has decided to take an approach of following what the legislation states. I believe it's 20 flips per route. So 20 customers that they have to go through and flip per route. It's a very small percentage of the total numbers, and thus doesn't really provide I would say statistically relevant results, unfortunately, but for the cost that we're required to incur, we're not complaining about that.
Oh, yeah, no, just an observation, but at least the district knows what how well the customers are doing in terms of recycling. So that's important to know and to let the public know those results. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to comment on Mayor's piece, I just would like to speak for the haulers a little bit, is that the drivers do have awareness around contamination for people that are contaminating, maybe not always leaving a notification on the first attempt. Most of the trucks now are equipped with the camera to see where the material is being dumped. So if you're a green waste driver, you don't want to pick up trash. So you may get him once or twice, but he'll pick up on that there's being material contaminations. He'll look forward in the future on it. Waste management, they already have technology where people are reviewing that. County customers will see more notifications on contamination in those streams. For the incumbent haulers, I think there's an integrity, and you may want to try this, Mayor. Put something wrong in one of those containers. Get a notification. It's just, there is integrity from the drivers and the haulers that are picking it up to have consistency on the material type that they're picking up. And I just speak that in general, that the haulers are looking for contamination other than what we're receiving from this instance of the report. So it may not be all 5,000, but the drivers are cognizant really trying to make a conservative effort to collect the material type that they're assigned to. So green waste driver doesn't want to pick up trash, he doesn't want to pick up recycling and so forth with the other commodities. So just speaking on behalf of the haulers a little bit, to try to represent a better representation of monitoring.
Yeah.
Material type.
Thank you.
I saw it.
Yeah, Kim.
So the door hanger that they're leaving,
Mhm.
Blue Stripe is leaving that.
Correct.
And the TAC has sort of approved the language or who's designing the door hanger?
Yeah, it's a hanger itself, which is traditionally used as a cart hanger by the franchise hauler. So Green Waste and Monterey Disposal already have their own form of, here's what box you check when you've contaminated or done something incorrectly. So we're using their existing materials, and then we have added, because it didn't cost us anything more, some educational information about what the lid flipping, what SB 1383 is and what the lid flipping, why it's being done, and what should go in each stream. So talking about food waste and food scraps and yard trimmings going in the organics cart is part of that messaging, instead of just you did this wrong.
Right. No, that's great. And so if the hauler notices contamination, what is their notification? Is it similar to the door hanger? So that the driver, does he actually get out?
Some have a little tag where they'll leave what is wrong, and they'll leave a representation tag on it on top.
Okay. But they don't have any obviously
No.
additional information or education that goes along with that.
And for the county, I'll just note that Waste Management has Smart Truck technology, and so they have a different system. They're not utilizing the same contamination monitoring, like actually boots on the ground flipping. They have the cameras and are sending notifications through their own processes with pictures to identify where contamination is happening. So it's just a little bit different in the county than it is in the other jurisdictions that way.
And in the education note, are we talking about when we're gonna actually start to enforce it? Is there any discussion, do they know that they have a certain timeline to sort of get their act together?
We have not put that in this contamination monitoring notice to my recollection, but we do have an opportunity because there are postcards that are required to go out to each generator. That's all single family households, not including each unit in the multifamily, but each customer of the franchise haulers. And so we can start to warn folks this year on those about upcoming monitoring. The TAC still has some work to do about what that monitoring will look like. It's required as of January 1st, 2024. So it's kind of right around the corner. But there are decisions to make about any sort of fines or penalization and who would be assessing those. And seeing if we can provide some uniformity again with that monitoring or with that change in the legislation.
Can you remind me what percentage we need to be at that point?
What percentage of diversion?
Yeah.
It's 2025, we're supposed to be at 75%, I believe.
Okay, so that's okay.
Yeah, and that's a goal. It's not a hard and fast, because the process that we are employing is source separated, which means the customers are separating in their own bins. There's a few different ways to comply with this law. So we as an organization and all your member jurisdictions have decided to source separate the organics. So essentially what that means is that we are not penalized for not meeting that 75% because the onus is on the jurisdictions of the people to source separate that material versus us doing that on the back end, for example. It's a little bit two different ways to approach the legislation.
Okay, and then just one more thing. When they lid flip, and I mean, because my trash isn't back, are they breaking open the bags?
They're actually told not to break open the bags.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So who knows what could be in this?
True.
Okay.
Yes.
Probably 30%.
But on recycling, I will note that on recycling and organics, there should not be bags.
Right.
So that right there is contamination.
I see Mike has his hand up. Did you have something to add, Mike?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, one of the challenges with this implementation of SB 1383 is that, we're way ahead of all the other jurisdictions. And we've already seen that what the goals were for CalRecycle, they're kind of changing them as they go. And so we just want to make sure we take a nice, slow approach on this and we don't get out in front of the regulators. And it's important to really understand what they're asking for, not what you think they're asking for. And I think that's why the TAC works great, because the authority is with the jurisdictions, not with the district. The district is just acting as a facilitator so that all of the jurisdictions don't have to staff up to do it themselves. And so that's really the benefit of this collaborative effort.
Thank you, Mike. And Mike is our chair of the Technical Advisory Committee.
Okay, Dr. Kim.
So as far as dealing with the education part of it, for the outreach, what kind of promotion and marketing are you doing, prior to going to the different schools, so that people that know that that's being done?
Well, the school outreach is actually so the schools are required to comply with SB 1383 like everyone else is. So we've sent notifications to each of the districts prior to the legislation being enacted, putting them on notice that this was coming their way. And then what we're doing now is really providing that technical assistance to say, they will come to your lunch time. We'll look at what's being done now. We'll provide recommendations of either different products you can purchase or different forks, napkins, all sorts of different things that you can purchase to be more eco-friendly. And then also to set up stations for diversion at the source. So we're teaching the children how to properly sort. We hope we'll also follow them home, when they go home, if they're taking their food scraps, for example, and putting them in a new place, not the trash. They might go home and ask their parents, like, are we doing this? Why is the school doing this and we're not doing this? So we're providing some education after the fact to them as a part of this.
So are you also using that as an avenue to provide like workshops and things like that for the parents through the different schools?
We've not done that yet. Reason being is it's a little complicated. The hauler that services all of the school districts in this area is Waste Management. That doesn't necessarily mean that Waste Management is also the hauler that provides service for the area. In your area, it's Monterey Disposal, and many of the other areas, it's Green Waste. So that's actually an activity that Green Waste is looking to ramp up this next year, is to help Waste Management and ReGen come together and follow that education home. That's the next step. We're really just scratching the surface of how to implement at the school right now, and then we'll be able to further the education home. It's a great question.
Thank you.
Karen, did you ask?
Yes, I've noticed that there are different instructional signage depending on where you are. It's one thing in Carmel, it's another thing back in the corner here, it's another thing at CSUMB. There's so many different signages about what's acceptable and what isn't, that people are confused. One place you can put in the coffee grounds in the filter, some places you can't, that's eventually I think we'll get to conformity, but we're not there yet. And Carmel has never gotten the new signage on their actual bins and all this for years and years and years. I happen to be married to an aspirational recycler. And I give him the notice that it isn't up to snuff, but we've never gotten any notice. And I know our recycling has been contaminated on more than one occasion, embarrassed to say. But I think until we get to the point where there really is good and uniform education material and acceptance in each city and each jurisdiction and with the different rate haulers, we're really creating some confusion with the void of you get it in the newsletter, but not everybody gets the newsletter. If you are a renter and it goes to your landlord, you don't even see some of this stuff. So I think there has to be some sort of real striving to get to uniformity. What is the right thing to do in every jurisdiction, no matter who your hauler is.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether you see that coming. I saw Mike said, take it a little slow because maybe some stuff you're requiring will be changed. But I think there is a lot of confusion out there.
Yeah.
And when confusion happens, you usually get a lot of pushback. Unless people are very clear on what they're expected to do, they just go, oh, who cares? And put it in there. So hopefully we can get to that sooner than later.
Yeah, that's a great point you bring up. I think that's one of the reasons why we wanted to be very diligent with the formation of how we rolled out SB 1383 and be really clear about the acceptance list is the same for all of the jurisdictions, because we saw the challenges with recycling. We have roughly 25% contamination coming into our MRF across all the jurisdictions. So it's a lot of wish cycling, I'm sure. Some people throwing things in that they want to be recycled and maybe may not. And so just some gaps in knowledge. And the onus is actually really on the haulers to provide that education. So the technical advisory committee is a great place for us to all come together and hear the same messaging, but the haulers are providing the customer service information and all the educational information to the member agencies. That includes newsletters, that includes, signage at locations, at business locations, for example. All sorts of different activities, but we usually, we review those items. So when they, for example, Green Waste, produces a newsletter, it goes to all of the member jurisdictions for review. It goes to us for review, and we provide comments and feedback to try to get more uniformity. But the issues of what's recyclable and what's not recyclable is, a problem nationwide. It's not in our area only, unfortunately. So there's definitely a lot more work to be done there. Yes.
Bruce, did you have one last thing?
I haven't said anything yet on this issue. I have two last things. You talked about online, and it's great to have a requirement to post online. Our city of Marina can do better in their website. I wonder if it would be within the realm of this facilitator organization on this matter to peruse some of the websites and see how hard it is to find some of the things that should be on there or that would be very helpful to be on our website, so that at least, as Karen's kind of getting to, people would avail themselves easily of the information that is relevant to their jurisdiction. I would suspect that if you looked, each city, you'd have to dig in, because you can't post too many things on the
homepage.
Where everybody wants to have their item, but sometimes it's just like almost unaccessible. So having it posted online on the website is one thing, but having people able to get it is another. I don't know if it's within the facilitation realm of what we do at the TAC or the district as far as education, but it seems like that would be a good step.
Okay.
The last question is very simple. Multifamily, who's responsible if you find an apartment complex of 200 units that's consistently getting highly contaminated? Where would the authorities go?
It would be the owner or the apartment manager, whoever has the contract with the hauler directly.
Right, and so would that include food? Because a lot of them won't even have food dispensers, right? Receptacles.
So that's something that we're working on. Multifamily is definitely a more difficult outreach and education tactic. So we've really been more focused on single family outreach. But I just watched a webinar last week from Cal Recycle about multifamily outreach. And the first thing we need to do is make sure that multifamilies all have a green card at their facility.
All right,
that's number one. Yeah. That's where the ordinance, states that, there's going to be some technical assistance from the haulers to make sure that they're complying, and from the cities as well. So they'll have to submit, the apartment complexes will have to submit waivers if they don't have space. And if they have like a de minimis amount of material that would be provided, and the cities are going to have to approve those or deny those. So that's going to take a careful watch. And then the next step is to make sure that folks have the information that green card is there and are starting to use it. So it's going to be a long road for.
So if I have a waiver, which many of our apartments built before 1985 are not going to have space, many of them. So they get a waiver. So then they can contaminate because they've been waived.
If they have been waived of having a green card, then they would dispose of their food in their trash. We'll have to see how strict those waiver systems are. For example, San Francisco, which is a very old city, I was just watching a webinar on that, and the cities were talking about how they gave almost no waivers, no exemptions, and they took away parking spaces in many cases to make sure that this happened. So I think there's a lot more discussion to happen at the city levels and decide, what kind of actions, and it may be different from city to city, you want to have to employ to make sure that there's compliance on this effort.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, Mike, is your hands?
Yes, if it's okay if I speak again, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to address the public relations and the coordination between the jurisdictions. That is one of the top priorities of the TAC. And in fact, we've gone beyond just the district areas. We have participation with Salinas Valley Recyclables on these TACs. They have a TAC, we have a TAC, and we go to each other's meetings. And the idea is to give the same message in Salinas Valley as you do on the coast, because a lot of people work in one side and live on the other. It's very similar to the concept with the schools, where we want the message at the schools to be the same as the message at home. And we want the messages on the coast to be the same as the messages in the valley. And so we're working on it. It's taken a little bit of time. And part of the issue is that we have to figure out, we've had to adjust what goes where in the last year or two. And that's, I think, what the confusion is. There's probably a lot of old signs from the way it used to be and new signs from the new way. And we just got to transition all that old information out. Is that about right, Zoe?
Yeah, there's definitely some more work to do there.
Great.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. I don't know why they don't cut open bags, but I mean, I can understand why, but my question is, has any consideration, and you don't need to tell me exactly what, but have you guys at all considered privacy issues?
Yes, once the carts are placed out in the street, they are part of the public domain. So when we've had, last year, we had some complaints on Nextdoor. I think someone out of their house videotaping, why are these people going through my bins at 5 o'clock in the morning? It's dark out and someone's opening your bin, but they're in the public right away. And at that point, when you've set your cart out, it is public property. So there's
no consideration
there's
for privacy. Okay.
No,
Right,
it doesn't belong to you at that point.
I mean, I know with credit cards and loyalty cards, everybody knows what you're buying anyway, and so of course that goes into your trash. But anyway, it's a.
I wanted to say one more thing. Is that this is near and dear to my heart. I like this diversion, and I like what 1383 is attempting to do. I think it's very wise to do. But with regard to multifamily, I wonder if in the future you could consider doing sort of a pilot project in several different multifamily to see what works best as far as notification and education around it. I know the Hacienda Carmel community is having a little bit of difficulty. They don't have little plastic bins, and some of the older people there don't understand why this is happening and what they have to do. But they have some very willing people there that could facilitate the educational process if you worked with them. And I think maybe communities like that, making them sort of a pilot project for future education in multifamily is just, I'm also in the illegal dumping and litter task force, and so much of the problem is coming from multifamily places where they don't have enough bins, they don't have the capacity for as many people as live in some of those units, and the landlord may never pass anything on to them about how to do this and what to do. So maybe, looking towards pulling in multifamily as well, once you get past single family dwellings, it would be a good idea to try out different things with 2 or 3 or 4 and see which ones work best before you just.
Yes, fully agree. And we've got some plans to do that. I know Salinas Valley Recycles, Mike mentioned, we're working very closely with them. I think they have two complexes identified. One's a Chispa, another one might be interim, where they're gonna do some pilot studies and we share information. So we might look to learn from some of their results at their pilot studies. It might have to do with what type of education is being provided, if it's in person, door to door, if it's some sort of community meeting, you know, if they're provided a pail or not, different resources like that, and see what can be most effective. One of the greatest concerns I would say with multifamily is, in some cases, there's a lot of turnover, maybe not at Hacienda Carmel, but some places, you know, you'll have 6-month leases or year leases, and we have to decide, you know, how much effort is worth that if we think these folks may be living there for 6 months at a time, and then re-engaging new residents every 6 months would be, you know, pretty costly.
Well, it would, but if you made that a requirement of the property owner landlord.
Yeah.
That, and he or she has to be responsible for that every time a new person comes in, you know, you have to sign a lot of things as a tenant. That you will comply with in most cases, and that might just be part of the program, is that you are required to recycle, you are required to sort your food waste, you know, that kind of thing. That can be done through the property owner.
Good idea.
Onus on them to do some of that education as part of this, of the new rental agreement or lease agreement.
Yeah, good idea. We are doing a train the trainer type activity with Communities for Sustainable Monterey County, and working with those folks. They have a fairly large coalition of volunteers that's interested in providing assistance for SB 1383 specifically, and we've had them out for tours of our compost facility to show them the difference of when you add bioplastics or not, and the rationale behind some of these things. And so we're helping them and feeding them with a little bit of seed money just to help them get off the ground to perform some of these pilots. They've done one in the Del Monte neighborhood. It's up Surfway in Casa Verde, Monterey, in that neighborhood there, and provided some great results that we're going to dive into and further expand out as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, a lot of good ideas and a lot of great work from the TAC. I really appreciate all that you do for our jurisdictions and the environment. So thank you very much. That was a great presentation and good discussion. All right. Let's see, moving on to other correspondence. We have a letter from Pajaro Valley Loaves and Fishes.
Yeah, it was an appreciation letter for they applied for the 2022 edible recovery food grant. They received 10K. They appreciate the generosity. They couldn't do what they do without supporters like us. So we just wanted to share the correspondence.
Thank you. Moving on to General Manager Communications.
Yeah, I have quite a few. Hopefully I can get through them pretty quick here. Landfill navigation systems training started in the prior week. And so we have our operators. It was a landfill system to really help capture our compaction on the landfill, how we're filling, or we're filling according to plan. So the training's in progress. We see a possible second round of trainings for the operators, and then also a round of training for our engineers to really help them capture data, store data, you know, best usage. So the training will be ongoing for the landfill navigation system. We appreciate the support with technology bridge between the old looking at the thumb and now having a system that can do that for us and have multiple people that can see the same plan design that's set to go forward at the landfill. Also, we have some work going on at the North Slope. At our January meeting, we talked about the North Slope having about 2 to 3 feet of vegetation soil above that started collapsing with the saturation of soil. We've since then have the repair going on. It's about 90% complete. So the North Slope and our concerns with compliance seem to be diminishing as we work forward. The Cedos company also had their machine sited. We still have an agreement to come back here to the facility. But in the interest of the Cedos company and support of them, we didn't want them to have to land their machine outside of the district and then try to re-land it again as we approach an agreement. So it's been put in its place. It's the location of the Last Chance Mercantile. It's not as huge as I would imagine it to be. So it'll be a start and we'll learn a lot of information from, if we can get that in operation and start using it for biochar. That would take, some of the key day material, that is the trunks, the big materials, cut up, getting down to material size and then be processed. Sure, guy?
So for clarity, it's the old Last Chance of Mercantile location. For those who don't know, Last Chance Mercantile is our current store across the parking lot, which is a retail entity for donated and salvage goods. That all began several decades ago, more as a auction, a once a month auction. And that evolved into kind of an on-site repair shop and then to a retail store. And that facility is located back into the operations area across from the MRF in the wooded eucalyptus grove. So next to module 7. So out of the way, there's a connection with the Keith Day wood chips. So just for clarity, it's the old Last Chance.
Great, thank you.
We also have been working with Monterey County staff, environmental health, safety services, Kelly OES, some FEMA folks that have experience with the cleanup that they did in Merced. And so we have been working with them. We have anticipated keeping our normal work hours at this point. We haven't, we're tentatively solicit on, did we want to have extra hours? But at this point, we don't believe we need that. It'll be about 15 loads a day. And we think that the work will be ongoing for 3 to 4 weeks, and then it'll be ongoing into a second stage. First initial stage is going to be folks returning back into their home. It'll be a mad dash to get as much material out. We've given guidance. David Ramirez is really led the process along with Jay to give an influence on how we want material types to be set out. So there is certain material types that are going to be set out. There's going to be probably 3 third-party folks that are involved in the collection piece. You have someone collecting HHW. They have to catalog and report and ship. And then you have someone that would be doing electronic waste. They have to catalog, report, and ship. And then you have someone handling MSW, vegetation, and C&D. And that's the scope of the influence that we were able to put out with the folks that are making the plan together for the Pajaro residents. So it's roughly around 250 homes that were impacted severely, and up to 500 that had some sort of impact altogether. So we will be looking at more material types coming through, but initially it's about 15 trucks a day that we're expecting in addition to what we're doing. We did start our leadership development. I keep on giving accolades to the leadership. We're in, have completed 3 of 6 sessions. We're getting good feedback. We're getting to know one another. We're starting to apply some of the attributes that we're learning through the leadership. So I'm very excited about the leadership and where we're at in the progress in development. We also have ReGen Monterey staff and Earth Day events in April. We have our team will be focusing and continuing to educate on food scrap and composting participation and Bill 1383. We have 2 slated. We have Earth Day on the 15th in Marina, and then we have Earth Day in Carmel on the 22nd, and Seaside will be on the 23rd. We have 3 slated. Kim will be holding a table in Del Reyes as well. Do you have that date?
The 29th.
The 29th.
What happened in Monterey?
Monterey, I do not know what's going on with Monterey.
Monterey, we were at Whale Fest last weekend.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we usually try to do 1 event per member jurisdiction per year. Many of those happen to be requests for Earth Day, but we try to hit the most applicable one in the jurisdiction we can. If you have feedback as to where we should be, I'm happy to hear that.
I'll meet with you afterwards.
Great.
We also purchased a drone to assist with our engineering and site operations. At our future meeting, we'll provide additional information. I'd like to really send appreciation to David Ramirez He's invested a lot of time, not only here at work, but also at home. He's had to take a test, he has had to get a license to fly the drone, find the correct technology that we want to apply for topography photos. I'll just give a short comparison. Annually, we do a topography and it takes several months for us to get a report and results back. Well, David's been able to share with us the drone in flight, figure out a flight pattern, really assess the facility without having to walk the facility. There's just so much around it, and we'll come back with a little bit more work on the cutting edge. And it wasn't a big expense for the usage that we'll get out of the drone itself. We also were at the Whale Fest, and we participated in that event in Monterey over the weekend. Thank you, Mr. Palmer back there. He actually cited the table at the Whale Fest. We also got our new artist in residence program just started. So we had a meeting with our new artist, Jesse Villarreal, and he is going to Monterey Bay. He's in his senior year. He will be getting his degree this year. We're excited to showcase his art in the future. Again, we give a stipend. We give him a location at the Last Chance Motel where he can perform his artwork. And he'll be doing several different types of art. His forte is actually painting. And he was able to share some of his artwork with the district staff already. So we're pretty excited about the artists in residence. This seems like a really good program that we can contribute to the community and the folks in it. I had a meeting with the California Energy Commission last week, and we really talked about reliability to the grid and to help the net peak reduction. And we also put on your table today a green energy growth list sheet, and we also included the microgrid front page and back page project. And we really talked to the commission about how some of the future projects that we have lined up in the future could align with some funding from the California Energy Commission at the same time. So we'll be focused on, how do we reduce net peak usage and consumption? How do we contribute to net peak consumption when it's needed during the hot months? 6 to 9, we have power outages, and so they're really looking to help assist organizations in pushing projects that could eliminate the usage and also the reliability factor of the grid itself. So that was a great meeting. We also have the SWANA, the Western Regional Symposium Conference, will be held in Monterey, April 3rd through 6th. And we will be hosting tours here on site for people that are attending the symposium. So we're pretty excited to be the showcase for everybody visiting. And we've been preparing, Jay, Guy, all the teams, the communications team, getting the facility really sparkling and pretty and really making it the gem that it is. And we want to really take the best attempt to showcase that with folks that will be visiting from within California and outside of California as well. So we're pretty excited about that. We had site tours. We had representatives from Senator Ana Caballero's office attend. And then we also had they attended the tour with the MERC tours. We had a bus come in, and we took a Spanish and English tour with all the MERC employees in one day. That was pretty exciting that we got them out to look at some of the projects from the quick facts and the green energy projects. They're seeing a vision of what we want to be and who we are, and the opportunities that lie outside of the MERC with other aspects of our organization. I'm really excited that the site tours are going. We had to cancel one due to the weather. These are smaller groups. They're groups of about 8. We're using the district van to incorporate those. We've mixed different people from different operations so that we can build camaraderie and cross functionality, and again, just the partnership and seeing a vision of that happen all together. I really want to thank Guy Petroborg and Eric Palmer on the green energy growth facts and the communications team as well. Because they do all the proofing. We have now 2 handouts. One is a quick facts of what we are and what we do today. And the other one is what our vision is and some of the projects that we have lined up for the future. And we'll continue to build these up. And I think these are important for our member agencies to have to see all that what we do, you know, and I still hear people call us a dump. I don't think we're a dump now. I think we are much more beyond being a dump. We are a facility that recognizes innovation, technology, people, and we're there. We're pretty excited. You know, I've been here for now 15 months. Time has gone extremely fast, but I can feel the changes amongst the people, the quality of work, and the representation of who we are here at ReGen Monterey. And finally, we have a new ejector truck that just arrived, I want to say a day or 2 ago. So if you have an opportunity today, a brand new truck, maybe it'd be a good time for a photo with any of the member agencies that would like to do that today.
What's it do?
It actually ejects dirt and it moves our rubble, it moves our volumes of dirt that we want to use for cover and for fill. So land movement. And that's all I have, Chair.
That's a great, lot of good stuff there. Thank you very much, Felipe. Bill,
Thank you for the report. Comprehensive as usual. I was wondering about picking up waste and recycle from the flood damage. Was that covered under existing contracts?
It is not. So the county put out a procurement contract to do the collection. So, you know, in talking to Waste Management, who's the franchise hauler, it wasn't really along the lines of what they do today. Now, right now, the franchise haulers either collect a cart or a bin or roll off. Type of work that's needed for the cleanup is to catalog, capture quantities, locations, really manifesting the material types that are coming in, and also picking them up from curbside and getting them into a container and truck. So it's a different type of service. Is that accurate enough?
I think that's accurate, and I would just add that FEMA has we're anticipating that we will receive FEMA disaster declaration. But not guaranteed, but we're planning on that. So everything that we're doing it in accordance with the specific requirements that FEMA has. So it's a whole different set of.
Yeah, I'm not clear on when you say who's.
We did the region, the county, everyone would qualify for the additional supports that FEMA provides. The county emergency operations center is collecting all of the required documentation, and Cal OES is actually on site today, verifying some of the documentation and damage assessments that have been done by your jurisdiction, by private parties, by ag, by residential, by business. So collectively, all of that documentation gets sent to Cal OES. Cal OES provides it to FEMA, and then there's the feds, and the feds then would activate the designation that allows us to receive FEMA resources.
It sounded like from your description for the collection of flood damage that it's the county put out a contract with the haulers. And is there a separate contract that recently came to ReGen, the district?
It did not. There is no contract at this point. We are gonna participate. There will be another customer for us, and it will be the county. So all we're doing is creating an account that will be billed to Monterey County for the disposal component. The independent subcontractors that they'll look to do the collection will be paid for the collection itself, but no disposal in it. So the county will receive one bill from ReGen Monterey on the disposal aspects, whether it's vegetation, C&D, or normal MSW solid waste material.
Under the existing county contract.
So, okay, jump in. So the most expedient thing is
Up to the podium, David.
so the most expedient thing was to just have them come in under our standard gate rates that we have published. So they're like any customer who would show up today. That gets everybody going fast. They can start this weekend.
There's no additional paperwork that's needed. We just keep track and send the bill to the county, who then will get reimbursed, anticipating to get reimbursed for the expenses of hauling and the disposal.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for the clarification, Karen. Karen?
Well, I know that the county spends a lot of money, over $1.5 million collecting illegally dumped materials over a year period. And I think you just received a presentation recently from Maria. Or it might have gotten postponed, but will there be like big, large dumpsters placed in the flooded areas for people to dispose of their things? Or are they gonna be on an individual basis, put it in a pickup truck and haul it out?
No, so the expectation during the actual disaster cleanup piece, which is a phase one, is for the resident to pull the material out to curbside. Everything that's in between the curb and there would not be collected, only what's set at curbside. So the attempt is to collect it right at curbside for these residents. In phase two, which is now like demolition, tearing sheetrock, tearing carpets, tearing floorboards out that have been damaged as a result of the water. We may see independents now working directly with the homeowner. So phase one, phase two is drastically different.
Well, the reason I ask is because without an organized place to put these things and an understanding of how the pickup will work and so on, there will be illegal dumping.
David, please, I know you've been working on this.
So we've been working with Cal OES and FEMA, who have a lot of experience, unfortunately, in Merced County. And the way it operates is, like as Felipe mentioned, everybody's just gonna tear everything out, put it in the street. That's how it's gonna work. And then each day, the contractor will come by with basically a grapple and just be loading materials into trucks and doing that as fast as they can to get the streets cleaned up. As far as illegal dumping, the county is expecting some of that. If they are finding that this is obviously not disaster waste, the oversight contractor who's doing the accounting for the county, making sure that everything's on the up and up, will note that. And it's going to be handled similar to how the county handles, I'm speaking for the county here, but as similar to how the county handles illegal dumping as it's done now. But they are expecting some of that to happen, just because it's just an opportunity. But it will get noted, and they would separate that out from the what's sent out to FEMA for reimbursement. So it's an unfortunate circumstance of the condition that everything's in.
And unfortunately, the system that we have in place now usually ends up with more expensive picking up after the fact instead of education, eradication, and enforcement. So we have to get to the point where we don't have illegal dumping because we have done the educational part, we've done the eradication as quickly as possible, and the enforcement. Because it's just a statewide problem at this point, a huge problem.
And I do want to say, the county team has been doing a really great job coordinating all this. I know they've been getting a little bit of heat, but this is a really difficult situation, and there's a lot of players involved, a lot of coordination, and they are going above and beyond the staff over there to make it all work. So just want to have a shout out for the team here.
Great.
For the team at the county, because we feel a part of this cleanup, and we want to be a help.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, David.
I want to mention that I've been in touch with Waste Management. They're hosting another cleanup event where they do bring dumpsters June 10th. And they do that cleanup also in the fall. So that's also going to help later down the line when there's more stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. All right. Great communications there. Moving on to the chair. I guess.
If FEMA doesn't come through, or my question to Felipe a couple hours ago included discounts. So I mean, is there some way that this organization can be involved in helping, not just doing business and making a profit as normally we would from anybody, but when it's all said and done, you know, maybe a year from now, when everyone's forgot about this, and the county is completing their paperwork and they find that they didn't get as much from FEMA as they expected, and they're holding a big bill perhaps, that if we could look at what we took in and give a 10% discount or 5% discount or something reasonable, whatever that is, so that we're part of a disaster aid, not just by, you know, taking their trucks as we would from anybody.
Well, thank you, Mayor. It's been a consideration. We will put something together and we can, once it's all completed, we can bring something to the finance committee that addresses the attempt to give the county a credit back.
Okay, and then just a quick question to David. Is it possible that you could program your drone after hours when we're all sleeping and you're sleeping to go back and forth over Lapis Road all night? That would be great. Thank you.
Great idea there. All right,
Along with what Bruce just said about a discount, I know that last chance Mercantile is supposed to make, you know, have a good fiscal report every year, but perhaps a discount to people who have to refurbish their homes. If they could show an address in one of those areas and they could come in and get a big discount, it would help move along the furniture and a lot of the things that are there could help as well. And then maybe more people would donate usable furniture to Last Chance Mercantile if that was also published, that this is the time to get rid of things because people will need to refurbish their homes in certain areas. Something along that line might be helpful.
Thank you. All right. Again, a lot of good thoughts, a lot of good ideas. Moving on to board communications, I expect Jerry to really fill us in on everything. Since we've been so quiet this whole time.
Everybody's comments are so provocative, I really have nothing to say.
All right, next time. Thanks, Jerry. Anyone else? Ready?
I just want to add two things. I want to echo the appreciation to ReGen and to Felipe and the team for everything that you've done as a partner with the county. I know I've had a number of conversations with Felipe. I know that you guys have been providing information to county OES. They're pushing that information back out to the county system. We've had one town hall. There's been ongoing communication with residents. And we are looking at a really significant long-term cleanup effort and recognize that there's additional weather systems coming through. I love mimosas, but I'm going to ask Mother Nature to respectfully provide us with no more mimosas in the winter. So thank you. Just a huge appreciation for just the way that everyone has really stepped up in incredible, exceptional ways. And I also want to recognize, I know everyone's really tired. I mean, I know speaking for my county team, like folks are exhausted and, but they keep going. So thank you for everything. And then just a second comment, some of the students who participated from Monterey Bay Charter School in the ReGen work at the school are so excited that they've been talking about, and so I've been, feeding in on some of those conversations. They all want to be drone flyers now, so they decided that Minecraft is actually job training. And I'm like, sure, why not? Anyway, they have expressed interest in coming to one of our future board meetings before the end of the school year. So I've expressed that as an invitation that they're welcome. But if they're able to plan an individual field trip, we'll let the staff know. And but I told them that we would love to have them come join us for a board meeting. So those are my two announcements for today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Bruce?
I want to give a thank you to the County Public Works Department. We assembled our monthly dumped items off Lapis Road this month, about 10 days ago, and was more than average. And it was on a Sunday, we would do it on a Sunday, and we were about to leave after organizing it nice and pretty. And the County Public Works crew just came by with a truck and a big trailer that was like about 8-10 feet tall. And they couldn't fit all the stuff in it, but they filled it in. And they came back the next day to get more stuff and the dumped motor oil. But anyway, it's really a good partnership, with the county and this agency doing that work. And I was really impressed kind of in regards to what Karen was saying, that the county has organized Pajaro families to put everything they need, everything that was flood related damage out on the street, but to separate it. It's not just a big pile and then the truck feed, it may end up this way, but it's not supposed to be this way. They're being asked to separate like with like, and hazardous material over to one side, so it's not all mixed up. And I thought that was pretty good organization. We'll see how it works. It's difficult to get people to comply with that kind of thing, but at least the effort's being made.
Comments? All right, seeing no others, we're moving on to the closed session items.
One item on the closed session relative to labor negotiations. And after that will be taken up, and then after the closed session, there will be a brief report out of any action taken, if any.
Okay, thank you, and I just want to give the public an opportunity to comment on our closed session item. If there's anybody from the public who wishes to comment on it, please approach the podium and raise your hand online. All right, seeing no members of the public wishing to comment, what is the public comment on the closed session item? Thank you, everybody.